Welcome to the SaaS AdLab podcast, where we interview stories of SaaS founders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs. My name is Luis. I'm the founder of Fantom Agency, a digital marketing agency specializing in scaling SaaS companies. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Jonny. He is a co-founder and CEO over at MeetingRoom. Thank you so much for being on here today, man. It's a pleasure having you. And to get started, why don't you just give us a little bit of background on where the idea for MeetingRoom really came to be?
Yeah, good place to start. Thanks again for having me on, and thanks for getting this call up today. So I'm calling here from Dublin today, and our story began between myself and one of my other co-founders, starting off trying to build a different kind of business between Dublin and eventually Beijing. And long story short, we needed to put a room together to start having that conversation, start having some whiteboard ideas, and then suddenly we're on a mission to try and kill this business idea by getting a customer on board to look at our virtual meeting rooms, compare to something like Skype for Business, and hopefully tell us there was not enough difference to pursue this. We got the different answer where it was definitely in the positive versus the video calls for group collaboration. And that started our journey off back in March 2017.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And what was the biggest issue that you kind of came across with right when you started the company?
Oh, we were trying to have tough conversations across borders and time zones. Really basic. We'd all lived a life under different careers, but where it came together, both from Paul, both from and Aby, we came together from, I suppose, how can we have a better way to meet as a really simple, basic mission, I suppose, at the beginning, to say, right, that's a nice high level thing, 50,000 foot view.
Right.
How do we do that? And then rather than saying replacing the one-on-one call like we're having today, like it's perfectly fine, does the job. Both of our heads look about the right shape for both of our brains to go, you're a human. Let's continue this conversation. I don't have to spend too much time wondering why you look a little ill around the gills today. All about system one and system two thinking from the pure, it's a brain game. We're trying to get people to believe in shared presence across borders. Mm-hmm. And for us, we had to have some difficult conversations about, those times you need a whiteboard, those times you need to have a sticky note wall where you can leave notes for each other the next time you actually want to see each other, as opposed to maybe stick it into an instant message chat or something like that. Mm. But where we fit is not necessarily taking on the one-on-one. Works right now, we're doing it, it's fantastic. I can see your head, as I've said already. And it's not for the maybe one to many where you're doing a webinar type thing. What we found along that journey, and I know a lot of your people listening are on the beginning of that journey or from the very beginning to the not so near the beginning, and what we found was our niche is around small group, high participation group, meetings where people are looking to get everyone in together and participate and collaborate,
right,
in an equal manner.
And I think that's one of the things that we see a lot, right? It's like you said, when we have the one-on-one, it's relatively easy to just be on here and continue the conversation. But when you have, say, 15 people or even 5 people plus, it starts to get a little complicated to obviously manage the conversation and just understand where everyone's at, especially when it gets so big that you can't see the entire people on there. So is that one of the things that MeetingRoom kind of solves?
Yeah, so when you're in that Brady Bunch style meeting and suddenly you're not sure whose turn it is to speak, and we actually do not those meetings where you don't want anybody to speak, and there are those kind of meetings where it's a check-in and it's very clear whose turn it is to speak. Right. Where this comes in is if you're doing a design workshop, if you're getting around the table and you need to have a tough conversation, be it good, bad, or ugly, and we found that the office has been changing overall anyway. Not just because of what's going on right now, but because people are looking for different outcomes from work, from the balance point of view, from I suppose when we began, we were nearly, we were called hippies or eco-wires at times, and now it's all about ESG, environment, sustainable and governmental end of things. And for us, it's just about doing the right thing, making software that helps people do specific things, not trying to take on the world of video conferencing. That's what's getting us through this particular crisis. And what people are prepping for right now is the next stage where we work very much with Fortune 500s, large enterprise customers who have these problems at scale. They might not call it remote work right at the gate. It's under many different auspices, from business continuity to just how do we communicate internally and externally. And for us, what we found is it's really driving that problem point up for other places such as SMEs and everyone who's having to figure out how to work from home right now.
Hmm.
But what we see being the long-term trend, yes, there will be some really interesting behavior changes to come out of it.
Right.
Neither you nor I, nor anybody listening, has a clue what that'll actually be by the end of it. And it's going to be different everywhere, by the way, depending on how we all react to these things. And not just look at the next 3 weeks and 3 months, but look at the next 2 years. What's this going to mean? So for us, being really specific about who we can help and who we can, I suppose, fit in our sidecar and make sure they have a great trip
Hmm.
as they go out in this virtual journey. That's where we help. We're digital concierges.
There you go. So that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up, right? It's obviously there's a lot of changes going on right now, very fast. Some people, I would say most people, I mean, nobody really saw it coming, right? But most people are going to see it as a negative thing. I think there's obviously the way to look at this in a positive manner, right? Like obviously, I think a lot of companies, even though they're suffering now, they're going to realize that there's different ways to run their companies that is going to be more profitable with less overhead, right? They're going remote and stuff like that. Has Meeting Room seen any changes at all, even with your suite, like your perfect customer, Inc. 500 customers? Do you see more of those people coming on board? Has this affected the way you do business at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's tested our qualification skills to say the least in terms of, bringing the right people through, not just nice marketing qualified leads, but making sure they're the right fit beyond that and turning that into, someone who's really a good fit for you. And it has to be both ways. I suppose one of our driving points for us as a team is if we're not the right fit for a team, we get out of the way. We are not the right fit for every solution.
Mm-hmm.
If we are the right team, we go deep. We really hammer it out with people. We bring people through a maturity model. And I suppose what answers your question, not to go into lots of stats, but we've had an incredible jump in interest. And that's in both the people who we can serve a little bit later and those who we want to work with right now. And by that, I mean who we can help the best right now, and maybe not tomorrow, but over the next 3 and 6 and 9 months as this market really forms. Because what we aim to do, again, is solve specific problems. We do not apply technology. We're a technology company, but we solve people's problems from a room by room basis. And that even links in with our own business model, I suppose, but I can go back into that in a while. But in terms of keeping it really simple and thinking for the marketing audience here, what we had to do is really figure out who can we point in the right direction, or either be it internally with us or to someone else in our space who might be able to help that certain person a little better. Because again, it's an early space. It's really pushing out right now, and it's definitely driven up in terms of priorities for 2020 and beyond. But people right now are panicking. I think that's the real human side of what we're seeing at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure I've got another light on here for a second. I think I just forgot to do the human thing of turn my light on behind me. But in terms of the human side of how people are actually dealing with this right now, some people are panicking. Some people are being proactive. We're seeing it across the board, different approaches. There is no right answer right now. And I spend a lot of my time limiting expectations, and that's the right thing to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just try and get a quick and easy sale because someone was in need. If you can help that person do that with your product, with your business and what you're doing, fantastic. If you're looking for something new because of something that's going on, it's not going to serve you or your company in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So what do you say, have you seen any sort of, I guess, kind of answers the question what you said earlier about, there's obviously people acting in different ways. Some people are panicking, but overall, I think people are moving really fast. Have you seen a specific quality in the people that are deciding to go with Meeting Room now than that make them a perfect customer, if that makes sense?
A lot of people we were working with prior to all this going on and we only count a customer as someone who's gone beyond proof of concept. Everyone who signs up to our door is obviously, or everyone who comes through our front door does not necessarily mean, same way if you're Regis or WeWork, they're not necessarily your customer right out the gate. They're coming in for a tour. They're coming in to understand the space that you're providing them providing to them. And what we aim to do from that is, to answer the question, we've had a lot of our perfect fit customers come through the door, but some of them come through the door a little early. Some of them come through at just the right time. And what we're focusing on is people who are proactive, have a specific problem they want to solve, have a link in with what we're trying to do rather than just trying to jam technology in. And we've had some of our biggest milestones come through in the middle of all this. And that's not someone just getting in touch for the first time. Yes, there's been many of the, oh, I can't believe you came and got in touch 6 months earlier than we thought we'd be reaching out to you. But for us, we brought some of our biggest milestones have come in the middle of all this storm. And from running an early stage business point of view, we found focus in the middle of all of this that's going on right now. And it's been fantastic because I work with a great team, which makes things a lot easier. It doesn't matter if you're already remote or just getting remote or whatever stage of the point you're at. Working with the right people and understanding that, look, marketing is not just about, and running the business is not just about making money. It's about making sure that everyone's okay. And I know a lot of people right now are talking about how, oh, we were already remote and we're doing fantastic. And yes, most companies who were already equipped for this are doing okay. Some aren't, but everyone shares one thing. We're all going through something together. And there's people behind the screen. There's people outside our home offices, and like, this is the new suit at the moment. What is behind you in your office? And that's the same for a couple 100 million people who it wasn't the same for before Christmas. The best thing you can do in times like that is do the right thing. And that is serve who you can help and be honest with the people who you either can't now or will later, if that makes sense.
Totally. I love that. I love that a lot. As far as marketing goes, what is in sales in your space, what is one of the biggest objections that you get from people that are potentially interested, right? Because it feels like a lot of the business that you get comes, I guess, organically, like they're already looking for the solution, right? Or at least a lot of the ones that end up becoming a client and stay on for a long time. But I think even then, it seems like there might be some education barriers that you and your team need to break through to get to the close.
Absolutely. And I work in enterprise sales here in terms of how we work. And it's not a short cycle by any stretch of the imagination. Most people start off with us at a bit of discovery, and we bring them through a maturity model. And at every step of the way, they're getting proof points. And it's not just coming in and selling technology, and it's not just finding the right use case. You've got to validate that. You've got to show that value as well. And there's a whole different levels, not just what you've got in your digital front end or what's going up on your blog. It's making sure that everyone's treated the right way. And again, I suppose I come from a background, not only in marketing, but in events for years. And the best events, the ones that people remember, and you remember a good time. And it's the same thing when it comes to, I suppose, I'll call it my boring office software. We get people to meet in a more effective way. It's going to change the world in different ways, and it's not supposed to be, we live in Ready Player One. For us, the point is, imagine you went the other direction where we didn't spend all day in VR, and you got to spend more time doing the real things, which is having a life, but also getting back to work, because you don't have death by meeting. You don't want to have all these different lovely Dilbert comics that could pop up about the average work life. What's coming up right now and what we see coming over the coming years, and as this technology adopts overall, it's going to be a new way of getting to work. And we are seeing some things that are going off in people's brains right now.
Right.
As we're talking, it's the middle of April. So people are right now a few weeks ago, it was people really reacting, going, oh, how are we going to do this? These are some people who might never have dealt with cloud services before. And yes, that still exists. People are still adopting all of these lovely terms that you and I are probably well attuned to. We can't assume anything. And it's exactly your point on education. There's been a lot of education in this space, and we're standing on the shoulders of giants here, not just for the last 3 to 5 years, but the last 20 to 30 years. This is not the first generation of, we can do VR meetings, we can have VR entertainment, we can have a whole different medium come on our doors. What we're going through right now, though, is one of the first, I wouldn't say consumer adoption just yet, we're getting there. But we are getting to the point where it's not as hard what the point is, I suppose. Maybe 3 months ago, people were still asking certain bits and pieces in terms of where does this fit in the organization? The difference between now and then is, and like any technology, people are getting more specific about what they want to do. And that's great for companies looking to start off in this area. It's great for the people who've been there for quite a while. But most importantly, the customers we're going beyond, I suppose, the BlackBerry and the Nook era, whatever way you want to put it.
Yeah.
I actually look at it more like a client said to me recently, very, very smart guy. He was like, look, it's more like television adoption. It took a number of major events to get everyone to buy a black and white TV. And actually, ironically enough, we all started off and nearly failed by everyone jumping in front of a camera and jumping and doing radio. We've come full circle.
Yeah.
The point is, it'll get there. It's getting better. I come from, I suppose I'd be biased towards a bit of a gamer myself anyway, but from a collaboration point of view, the education point is not so much about why this technology is better. It's where this fits. And when I would say where it fits, it's why would you move beyond the face-to-face of what we're doing right now? And what's the real added value? Not just it's better presence. That's fantastic. I can hear you like you're sitting in the table beside me. And they're basic requirements I would expect from any platform like us working in the area. You've got to simulate the real life as best you can, but you're absolutely not trying to replace it. I look at this as a new form of mobility, and I suppose that's what we spend more of our time educating about is, if I said to you, look, if we were meeting in real life today, and I said, you're looking an awful lot like your car today, your Buick, you might get a little bit offended. Whereas when I show up in MeetingRoom, my beard is nicely trimmed because my barber has done the right thing and been on strike for about 6 weeks now, and I'm holding out as long as I can in support or laziness, I'm not sure. But in terms of when I show up in MeetingRoom, I've got an avatar, I've got my head in my hands, I can give body language. I'm not giving all my facial language yet. That will come with time and generations of headsets. But what I can do, I can give full body language. I can have the right tonality in rooms that, if I'm having a good or a bad conversation with you and a team at the end of a week or the start of a week, by the sheer click of putting someone in a different colored room, you can change the dynamic completely. Totally. So the point is providing these spaces for group dynamics when you're trying to de-bias situations and really just let people get around the table and remote problem solve. That can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but it all starts around the table.
Totally. I agree with that. Now, earlier you mentioned that you'd move away from self-serve service, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we were so in the middle of all this, we had opened our platform about 2 years back by doing self-service, and it was when we were really finding where our niche was and trying to let as many people tear our platform apart and really, give the rooms a good, robust run through. Yeah. And what that helped us develop was a very reliable system, which in the world we work in, reliability is number one. You've got to make sure everything's secure. You've got to make sure everything acts the right way, because if you're planning a meeting and it doesn't happen, can't be the meeting rooms. It can't be because you left the door locked. If this is happening in real life, the same thing applies with us. The right people get into the right room and all these different bits and pieces. And for us, we really do try and give a good first-time experience. So what we've been doing, and what we just made a decision to do was, rather than throw our doors wide open and not be able to serve everyone as best we could, because we're a small team. We are in the beginning of an amazing business, but we are very specific about making sure that everything stays reliable. And that is not just from a platform point of view, but also from a customer service point of view. Right. I much prefer I spend most of my days getting in rooms with people, getting them kicked off, working through our maturity model with them over the course of weeks and months to actually bring this out into the wider organizational population. And what we found with the self-service, and this is just, you got to know who you're trying to serve. And we're not there to service every single person who comes up to the door. We're there for people who have problems that they really need to prove and bring that forward. We're a large enterprise. That's our skill set. That's what we're very good at. And it's what we've really doubled down on. So when we closed the self-service, it was a case of going, look, we would talk to nearly everyone who comes through the door as best we can anyway, and at least try and say, look, what are you actually trying to solve here? If we can help in any way, we do. But as a rule, we are working with people who work in the enterprise, and for them, it's not just getting in and kicking the tires of the room right away. We'll be meeting in a room very, very quickly after someone comes to our website and meetingroom.io. But what we do is we like to we actually get on a video call a lot of the time because it is nice to put a face to face. I
Mhm.
spent a lot of the first part of this life putting faces to avatars 3 months after the fact, because we'd be meeting someone, we'd be doing all of our engagements, and then it would come to the point where, oh, we should probably say hello on a video call at some
Yeah.
point, you know.
Yeah.
But the point is, for us, look, the whole thing is about getting people face to face again. That's the ultimate driver. I know we're making virtual reality meeting rooms, but
Yeah.
the whole point is we can serve specific people really well. And that's the key when you're building up a business near the beginning or at any point. You're doing specific things and trying to execute well. And that's what we focus on, making sure that those who come through our doors have a very good time in terms of they have a better meeting experience. They have teams who are more engaged and build better rapport over time. And a lot of that comes from being, I said it before, but we're digital concierges. And I want to make sure that everyone who comes through
Right.
gets what they're looking for.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now to shift here to a little bit more personal, side of things as far as being a founder, building a business, stuff like that. I want to ask, what is on a personal level, right? What is the hardest, the most difficult challenge that you've been faced with?
Oh, ever? Oh, that's a difficult one. I'll pick up more of a trend that I always focus on, which is priorities. And be that from not just what do I do every day for work, what's the best thing to do this month, this quarter, this year for the business, or whatever you're doing at the time.
Mhm.
It's getting that balance from a family point of view. It's getting that balance from, making sure you have your own time as well.
Right.
I've worked remotely my entire life. I didn't realize it until it became a new, I wouldn't say new cool thing to do, but it's definitely getting another wave of evangelism right now, which is
Yeah.
great. It's fantastic that other people get to unlock the opportunities I've gotten from doing this for as long as I have. My first remote team was playing EverQuest as I think an 11-year-old through a 56K dial-up. But from a professional point of view, I actually would have run nightclub events between Boston and Dublin as my first remote job, running 2 Monday nights across different time zones. That was a fun summer or two, and actually year or two, because I ended up working with that place for a bit longer after that. But for me, the whole point of what we're doing, and for me, in terms of the issues we've had with that, turning off. I wouldn't say I've had a full burnout or anything like that. I don't think I've been privileged enough to hit that just yet. In terms of milestones, I suppose, in terms of people who talk about it these days. But what I really try and focus on is work-life balance, and it's something I've had to really keep in line. And it is a struggle because I love what I do, and that's not just because what I'm doing right now is fantastic. It's because I pick stuff that I really get passionate about. I would be your classic passionate founder, but I also like to be someone who follows up on that passion and make sure that look, this has a reason, this has a means to do it. And if you don't, every entrepreneur is a social entrepreneur, whether they like to believe it or not. Whether
Yeah.
you're creating 5 jobs or 500 or whatever your goals for that business might be,
Hmm.
prioritize yourself first. You have to. Because especially at the beginning, if you get hit by a bus, I know that's the usual catchphrase on these things, but if you hit burnout, if you do hit that unproductivity bit from doing too much, be that from work or in family life or whatever the case may be, you just got to make sure you bring it all together. And for me, small things like going for that 20-minute run or slow plod, I am not a runner by definition. But in terms of making those efforts and doing new things a quarter, that's something I've really been working on for the last 2 or 3 years now.
Awesome.
Doing something, even if it's one thing. I mean, last quarter, I'm not joking, it was make sure I eat porridge every morning. I'm not joking. Something as small as that can make such a difference to everything. And routines are good, to say the least.
I definitely think so. I think, especially this time, right? I feel like a lot of us, meaning just the entire population that is now having to be stuck at home. Like you said, like you've been working, remotely for a long time, and I've been doing that too now. And I feel like we start to take things for granted, like going out and just walking, that sort of thing. Where now I didn't do it much before. I mean, I got out, but I would go out in the morning to go to the gym or something. But I never thought about it, and now it feels like I'm really stuck without the ability to go somewhere. So I think if you have the ability to go out and take a fresh breath, during the day and stuff like that, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, but look, what's really fun, building on what you asked last, but also just looking at how, so wrapping up the education side for me, I ran off on something there, and I wanted to make a point, which was for me this whole VR for work thing, which obviously I'm trying to be a big part of, about what we do. It's not just about providing for me better meetings. It's about living that life and trying to set an example of, imagine if we didn't all play video games all day, and talking from someone who definitely spent a few too many hours playing Red Dead Redemption, and which I saved for a rainy day, and there's been some pretty rainy days lately for all of us.
Yeah.
So the point is, it's not about separating out for all time. Take today for example. Before, I think it was my 1 or 2 o'clock, I jumped in for 2 rounds of paintball in Rec Room, and it was fantastic fun. It got me into a fun state of mind. I was resetting myself, and same as if you go for a walk. I didn't actually. I'm not. Obviously, we're all trying not to go out so much. We're on lockdown right now, and
Yeah.
I do not try and do all my exercise in VR. To be very specific, it's great, but it doesn't replace the real thing. Never will. It'll definitely make it more fun. No
Yeah.
brainer on that. But in terms of going for a short walk to the shop, doing these small little bits and pieces. Uh, we were talking with a customer this morning. Actually, I referred to it as going for the prison walk. You have a routine, and it's so important. And the reason I was talking about porridge before was
Yeah.
what was really important. What's really important is doing small things to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
And even thing, I think I reset up this office in January by pure luck, in hindsight of how things are going right now, because I couldn't even buy a webcam or mic as it sounds right now, or at least I'll be waiting for an awful lot longer. And if your life is living on calls like this,
Yeah.
then you've got to make sure you show up with the right tools every time. That used to be the car, or arriving on time for the airplane so you could arrive for the 10 o'clock meeting across the pond, or whatever the case it was.
All right.
But now it's, can you show up on time? Can everyone hear you? Can everyone see you? When it comes back to meeting room, it's about, can you engage and can you participate?
Mm-hmm.
That's our driving force, and that, I suppose, is where, yes, there's a lot of interest in this area right now, because more people are having the same problems, and that's when things get really interesting in terms of going deeper on those use cases. Being able to turn statements into facts is an important thing for any business to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did, I think I was mentioning earlier on, we tried to take apart our idea from day one by working with a fantastic partner, Bank of Ireland, to just test the difference between Skype for Business and our platform.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in our very first week, back in actually March 2017. And I'm pretty sure, I just remember, we missed our third birthday because we've been a few busy weeks. But in terms of what we found from that, and our first proof points, not the proof. There's never the proof. The proof is your customer saying your product is awesome. You guys help us do X, Y, or Z.
Sweet.
The small things like getting an email saying, "Oh, you killed off our Friday afternoon email thread because we got in a room and had a quick coffee about things as a group, beyond the video call, beyond when they need to do certain things." That's what gets me fired up. It might be. I remember my first time having a number of avatars. I was on desktop like I am right now, and it works across platform. We're obviously virtual reality meeting rooms,
Yeah.
and the best way of getting a full immersion is hopping into your VR headset. But when you're coming into when you're working in any business, you have to be able to come in from any point. So I think the office has had a big issue with bring your own devices. So back in the past, so
Yeah.
we just built that in from day one. So if you're coming in from a desktop and you're sitting at your table, and you're sitting at your virtual table, even via desktop, and you've got 8 people looking at you, it's your turn to speak. Small little nuances like that.
Yeah.
That's the human side of this. It's not about just building tech. It's
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it as simple for people to get access to the tools they need to make important decisions. And we're going through a time right now
Right.
where decision making is paramount, and it's going to affect how we react and how we plan for the next few years is being decided right now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Well, more decisions tomorrow, but
Yeah.
keeping it really simple. That's what people have to do with this kind of stuff.
I completely agree. Now, running a little bit out of time here, Johnny, but
No problem.
to kind of wrap up with a couple last questions, if you could, if somebody that wanted to start a company, they didn't necessarily know what they wanted to do, or somebody that's early stage came to you and said, you know, if you could do something early on that you didn't do, what would that have been?
Surround yourself with Not smarter people. That's a given. Especially if you're founding a company, you've got to have the passion and the drive to bring really good people together,
Hmm.
and that'll change year to year, quarter to quarter. But if I was to go back in time, and I've said this, like with this company, I've surrounded myself with mentors, and not just for a quick chat every now and again, but for very specific things,
Hmm.
and not even for all time. You work with people for when you need them and for trying to improve yourself and your team. I think going out, and those mentors for me have come from people from my past, people I've reached out to, as basically as chatting to someone on LinkedIn can be the smallest but most
Yeah.
effective thing to start a real relationship. And eventually do get face to face with someone. I know right now, a lot of new conversations that can be started all over the world, but you're trying to create something meaningful with someone. Don't just talk to someone because you want to say in the next meeting you have with the next person, oh, I'm talking to so and so. That's not the point of meeting people. That's not just because I do meeting software. It's You have to create that real relationship, and if you can be as self-aware as possible by saying, you know what, I'm not brilliant at X, Y, or Z, or I haven't done this particular thing before. Go find someone who has, and I know that's probably one of the most overused things on any podcast or any of these things ever. But honestly, it's the truth. Go and talk to people who, whether you can, even your competitors at times, talk to people. You'll find that, hey, you're not actually doing the same thing. You might have known that already, but it's great to link up with other people who are making things happen. And usually in startup land, you're doing something new. There's going to be other people doing that. There's a good chance, and this is a key thing to remember actually, you're going to probably work with people in your industry over the next few years. It's not just this company, it's the next, or it's other opportunities that come along the line. And you
Hmm.
never know which side of the table you're going to end up on with someone.
Yeah.
So reaching out and talking to people from every aspect of what makes sense. Don't just talk to people for the sake of it. Have a reason, have a meaning behind what you're doing, and at all times be authentic. There's no point trying to put a show on for people, and it's okay not knowing who you are yet. That's also fine. I know everyone gets I get terrible imposter syndrome. Still do, always will. It's my butterflies in the stomach. That's kind of what helps drag you out by the socks in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
But be yourself, be authentic, and if you know yourself, then you'll know where you're good at, but also where you're not great at. There's better people for everything. Someone else has walked that path already. There's
Right.
very few there's very few original ideas and things that haven't been done before. So
Totally.
think about it. Does that make
I think,
sense?
oh, 100%. I think one of the best places too for anything like that. I feel like, and even if that's like, I feel like now we have just a vast, supply of knowledge, from whether you want to go online and read somebody's blog, or just go on LinkedIn, connect with someone that, like you said, has done something before. But also books, like they have so much value from people that have done amazing things in the past. I think reading is one of the best places to find a mentor in this case, and just trying to obviously not have as much information as possible, but get information that you can actually use and apply.
The quickest way to figure out someone's workflow is read their book if you're looking at it from that point of view.
Yeah.
But actually, on that point, saying thank you to someone who wrote a good book or wrote a good blog post or something can sometimes lead to. I've had more virtual coffees the last few months because I got on a call with someone. We shot the breeze. We didn't go necessarily into work. We didn't necessarily just tear into the article that we were both talking about. You make some real connections. And if you find someone who you keep reading their content over and over, don't pester them, but maybe reach out and say, hey,
Yeah.
thanks. It can mean a lot for someone to know. And, we're all doing the same thing. Validation, whether it's if you're writing out content, do people actually read it? Even letting someone know that you've read it can be a big deal for some people, but it could also be if you disagree with someone, that's okay. Opinions are fantastic, and getting that discussion, uh, it's that's a big part of when I was talking about getting around the table. When we began the company, we're all very different people, both who run the business and who are going to get involved in the future. And diversity is not about time zones and all these different bits and pieces. That's a given.
Hmm.
But if you want to build something good, get different people around the table with you. Everyone doesn't have to agree on everything.
Yeah.
That's, if everyone's saying the same thing, it could equally be the right thing, but could it also be the very, very wrong thing?
Yeah.
And that will help from going out and talking to other people, whether it's customers, whether it's mentors, whether it's whatever case it may be. But starting with when you're, especially at that very, very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily have to find a founder on day one. Founders come in either at different times or at different points of the business to say, look, I need to figure out, is this a business first? Then I need to see who do I actually need to help build this business and make sure that you've got the right people on board, because you could end up 5 years into a business and realize, oh, well, we can do X, but we want it to be Y. And
Right.
why did we get there? And not knowing why you're winning is the biggest killer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a time like this actually where that will really show. Businesses who understand how they work are able to adopt things like work from home a little bit easier, because it's not a sudden, well, if I'm not sitting beside you, does everything still happen?
Yeah.
It's so in the same way, preparing and all these little bits and pieces and saying thanks along the way can make a huge difference to getting through tough times like this and finding that competitive advantage over the next few years.
Love that. Love that. Thank you, Jonny, so much for everything that you shared. I really enjoyed it. And I think we'll wrap up with that. And last question, where can people find you online?
Oh yeah, I'm on LinkedIn mainly. I do tweet a bit, but I'm not. I've deleted most of my mobile apps from my phone because I'm actually sitting at home all the time, treating myself as not in the field. But no, follow me on. If you can catch me at Jonny Cosgrove on pretty much every platform, from Facebook to Twitter and all these bits and pieces. But LinkedIn is where I live most.
Cool. Awesome.
And obviously MeetingRoom.io. That's where you can come to find out and check things out. Say hello if you want to drop by, or if you ever want to catch a virtual coffee, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonny, and we'll catch you next time.
Brilliant. Have a nice day. Stay safe.